Hey everyone, welcome back. So today I picked up one of these basketball pro bases, and it's a giant spike that gets driven into the ground and then holds one of your old school style basketball hoops like this. Take the base off of it, drive that spike into the ground, and then transform it into a fixed basketball hoop. So let's get this assembled and try to drive this into the ground and see how it works. Alright, so you get two of these that look exactly the same. One of them is going to attach actually to this. Something like that. The one you want to attach to the big spike is the one with the square holes on the bottom. So we'll put the other one to the side, and then we take this one, attach it to this. Now to hold this is the blocker you're going to be banging on with a sledgehammer to drive this huge spike into the ground. And to keep this in place, I want you to add all of these bolts into the side here. And that will hold these spacers there. Somehow. So let's get all these bolts. Let's get all these bolts in here and figure that out. All right, so now this big spike gets driven into the ground. You have this as essentially taking place of like a stump or something that you could use here, and you're hitting it on top of this, driving this whole spike into the ground. And you've got these spacers that line up in here. Wedge it in here so it stays put. The bolts that we drove earlier are holding everything in place. So then you start just pounding on this, driving this whole thing into the ground. So let's go out to where the basketball hoop is going to be and see if we can drive this huge spike into the ground. It's got to be like 3 feet tall. It's going to be quite the feat, I think. So first started out using a tape measure just to find the center point of this concrete pad so that the basketball hoop would be somewhat centered and wouldn't be off to one or the other side. Once you find where you want it, then they recommend using a large crowbar or some sort of long poking stick and just drive it into the ground as far as you can. And what this does, it helps you find if there would be any obstacles like large rocks or roots or anything else that might get in the way of that large spike. And in my instance, I did actually find a piece of rock or something, and it prevented me from pushing that crowbar in any further, and so I had to move it just a few inches to the left. Now here's where the fun begins. So you put that black plastic thing at the top and you start hammering this thing into the ground. And it's going to take quite a few heavy whacks, and just kind of keep an eye on it. Make sure it's not too skewed to one or the other side. Try to keep it as level as possible. And it doesn't have to be perfectly level, because at the next bracket that you put on this, it's going to have a little bit of adjustment to it. So it doesn't have to be perfect, but it has to be fairly close. After whacking it a few times, you could see one of the plastic spacers actually broke, and I had to go find a stick to wedge in between the big block and the bracket. Now once you have the spike driven all the way into the ground, now we can remove these bolts that were holding that big plastic block in place. Once you have all the bolts removed, now you attach that second bracket like so. So the face of it is pointing towards the court, and then you take the biggest back plate and you attach it to that bracket. And then once we have these two pieces attached, then we'll level the whole unit. So here you can see how on that second bracket that the holes for the bolts are slotted, and so this allows you to adjust level front to back and left to right as well. So once you have that dialed in, now you go ahead and insert all the rest of the bolts and tighten this thing down. Now that we've got that spike in the ground, now we can begin working on the basketball hoop. Start detaching the base from the hoop itself. Now the next step is to get these two bolts out of here, and they're so rusted in there, your only option is either to cut them off, or what I decided to do is just use the sledgehammer and bend them out of the way. Now, once the hoop is all prepped, now the next step is just to put it in place. And so you grab it, stick it in there, and put the front plate of the Pro base on it to hold it in place. And the last and final step is just to insert this back plate behind the hoop, and then just use the adjustable nuts to tighten it. And as you tighten those two, it should auto level to the big spike in the ground, since you did all the work to level that out in the first place. You can see the whole hoop begin to move as I tighten it. And here's the final product. I think it looks pretty slick. I wish it came in black. I think the orange stands out a little too much, but other than that, it's pretty solid. If I just shake on it, it's really not moving too much. And it's going to be really great to not have to worry about this thing whenever a big windstorm rolls through. But I'll keep you guys posted, see how it survives the wintertime. And I'll see you guys on the next video.